Well, good morning and happy feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I'm going to try to get in answers to all the fabulous questions I got for this introduction. Even though it's supposed to be Introductions Friday, I'm just going to do it today, which is a Saturday, which is fine because I love Mary, so this is one of my favorite feasts, and it also happens to be my 1 year anniversary of making final vows. So I just made them last year on the Feast of the Assumption, and this is also my feast day. So we get to, as Felician sisters, choose our feast days, and we also get to choose our names. So we can choose, first of all, two things: if we want to change our name or if we want to keep our name. And I chose to keep my baptismal name, so I was baptized Desiree Anne Marie, and I kept it because it has a lot of meaning for me. I was born premature. My mom, first of all, was told she would never have children, so her pregnancy with me was really complicated. I think both of us almost died in childbirth, so she lost like enough blood that she needed 2 blood transfusions. She was out unconscious for a few days. I was 5 pounds, which isn't so bad. I was born a month early, and when they discharged her from the hospital, they said, "You can go home, but your daughter cannot. She's not going to make it." And she'd already been told several times throughout the pregnancy that I wasn't going to make it. So, but my mom, fortunately for me, is feisty, and she's like, "No, if I'm leaving, my daughter's coming with me." And they were like, "All right." So my mom took me home and named me Desiree because she had constantly prayed after being told she would never have children. She constantly prayed and said, "God, this is my heart's desire. I want nothing more than to be a mother." And so then when I was born, after lots of challenges, she called me Desiree after her heart's desire. And my middle name, Anne Marie, is also important to me because, of course, she went to St. Anne for intercessory prayers and to Our Lady. And so I just thought, well, why not keep all of that? It has so much significance. And as religious sisters, in most congregations, we have to have some form of Mary in our names. So I could have been like Sister Mary Desiree or Sister Desiree Maria. But I already had Mary in my name, and then I thought, well, I might as well keep Mary's mom in there. So I kept my whole baptismal name. So then when I was choosing, we get to choose our feast days, I thought, well, I could go with, maybe the Sacred Heart or the Immaculate Heart because of the word or the name Desiree or desire. And I played with that for a little bit, and then I thought, I could go with St. Anne with her feast day. But I love Mary so much, and I just thought, well, I want to honor her in some way. And the first group of sisters that I got to know, who were Felician sisters, their convent was the convent of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And that day happened to also be my grandmother's birthday on my mom's side, who had a lot to do with my faith, with my mom's faith. And so I thought, well, to honor not only Mary as a woman who I very much love and admire, but to honor the women in my family who have been there for me, who have been role models for me, I chose the Feast of the Assumption. So then, years later, for me to be able to make my final vows on this feast day was also just incredible. So today is a super special day to me, and that's why I decided to do my introduction today. So hopefully I can get to all your questions. If not, I'll write some down in the comments. So I'm also trying to hurry because we're getting ready for Mass soon. Anyway, so why the Felician sisters? It's funny because like the things that I loved about this community, I didn't really understand. I loved it, and then it kind of like I saw that deepen as I went along. So, for example, I met 2 sisters on a pilgrimage, and I do have a fuller version of my vocation story on my YouTube channel, which is in my link tree under my bio. But I met 2 Felician sisters on a pilgrimage, and they were just so different. One was a very gentle introvert, the other was this crazy loud extrovert, and I loved them. I loved that they could be themselves. I loved that they were so different because it told me that in this community you can be yourself. So I thought, well, if I entered, I could be myself too. I wouldn't have to be like anybody else. And as I've continued in this life as a Felician sister, I've seen how important that is to me and on how many levels I'm able to live that. So not only culturally, but also when it comes to the things, that I value. So, for example, we're able to choose what habit we can wear, which is another example of like we get to be a member of this community and yet be ourselves. So when it comes to the habit, we can wear something very traditional with a veil and a dress that has like the collar and the scapular. And typically that's brown or beige, or it can be white depending on your ministry. Or you could wear a veil and then something a little bit different like a blouse and a skirt or some sort of dress. Or you could wear a blouse and a skirt or some sort of dress without a veil. So the common features are the crucifix that we all wear, it's right here. And then the colors, so brown, beige, maybe black, white. Those are like our color schemes, so we kind of have a uniformity, but at the same time, again, you can also be yourself and express yourself, because while we are members of one congregation, God has called each of us individually to be on this earth, and so I'm not supposed to be any version of anyone else, and no one else is supposed to be a version of me. So while I get to live this common life, I also get to live God's call to me, which comes in the form of ministry as well. So when I was teaching, before I move on to that, one of the really good questions was Catherine Whitaker. I hope I said your name right. She asked about why I chose not to wear a habit, because we had a conversation and she asked me about that. And so I chose to wear not the traditional habit because, I started out wearing it. I wore it for about 5 years. It was when I first entered and I thought, sisters should wear habits. And so I started out wearing that, but then the more I wore it, the less I felt like myself. The more I felt like a symbol. I felt like more like an object, and and this is just me. This isn't like every sister who chooses not to wear a habit or every sister who chooses to wear a habit. This is just me. So I felt like a symbol. I felt like an object, and I didn't want to allow that to stop myself from being a human. I'm a human being. So I realized that it was like helping me build walls, and I didn't have to be vulnerable, and I didn't have to be honest. I didn't have to admit that I was having a bad day. Like, it made it harder for me to say, I'm really impatient today. Like, I had a bad night, and I don't want to talk to anybody. It was important for me to acknowledge my emotions or to acknowledge my struggles, because I tend not to. Like, as Desiree, I don't like to say when I'm feeling sad or when I'm feeling hurt or angry. And wearing a habit and becoming a symbol, becoming an object, allowed me to go further into that brokenness. And I just thought, I can't do that. I don't want to be less of who I am, and I don't want to be less vulnerable and less honest. I know how important those things are. So in order to allow myself to be, to embrace my humanity, I said, I have to wear something different. I have to be less of a symbol. And I also, the two other things, I felt like so covered up. I felt like less of this body, that God gave as a home for my soul. I felt like I just wasn't able to embrace it. And so, dresses like I wear now, so you can see, very feminine, very much, modest, but it's me, it's my personality, and it's Desiree, it's it's just myself. And again, like back when I met the Felician sisters, I didn't realize how many levels that was going to, entail for me when it came to, I love these sisters because they're just themselves and I want to be myself. And now it's like I see all these ways of wanting to be myself, that I can be in my community. And so that, and same, like, it was also at a time when Black Lives Matter movement was gaining momentum, and I just felt, again, like I was so covered up that I also wanted to just be my colorful self and be I'm a woman of color, like I'm a Black woman, my skin is dark, my hair is curly, and I didn't want to hide that. I wanted to say, I'm here in this with you. This isn't, I'm not shutting off that side of me either. I'm going to embrace that, and here I am, and you're going to see that. So those were some of the reasons, I guess, that I really just felt like I needed to let go of this very, very symbolized sort of clothing. But at the same time, I feel like, when we speak of diversity, I feel like it's important that we have sisters who are in habits and that we have sisters who are not, even sisters who are wearing pants and t-shirts. I think there is room for diversity. There has to be, because we are not all the same, and we don't have to all be the same, and we can't all be the same. Like, the way I see God is as a mosaic, and there are different parts and different colors and different pieces and different shapes, and without that you have less of a picture. So it's the same like in the church. We have so many different religious communities because we're also different, because all of our founders and foundresses felt a different call and a different way of doing things and a different way of looking and a different way of existing in the world. And that's why we don't have just one religious congregation. So that, sorry, goes into like a little bit of a tangent, but that's why I feel like it's good that we have sisters wearing all sorts of different things, because it speaks to different people. So different people are going to approach a sister in habit than people who would approach a sister not in a habit. And in that way we can evangelize and cover more ground, if you will. So there's that. And then, okay, wait, I took notes because I got so many really good questions. Someone else asked me, one of my former students, if I was going to go back into teaching. And I loved aspects of teaching. I loved my students. I loved that we got to spend almost every day together. Like, I missed them on the weekends. I still miss them, living across the country from them now. But I learned about myself that I am not a routine person. So I thought, structure will be good and having the same routine every day will be good. Absolutely not. It was stifling. So having a routine at home where we have prayers at the same time, mass at the same time, a meal in the evening together at the same time, like that was pretty much as much structure as I could take. And then to go into ministry and have a structure in ministry where it was like same schedule every day, or like same routine, I couldn't do it. And so I got into vocation ministry, and again, like we kind of get to choose where we serve and how we serve. But again, too, I belong to a congregation. So I don't just say, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go get a degree in this and do what I want. But I go to my council and I say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm interested in, this is what is not working for me. How can I move towards something different, or where do you see my gifts, or where do you see I can contribute? So when I didn't want to be in teaching anymore, the council asked me, okay, well, what is it that you might be interested in? And we talked about maybe youth ministry or campus ministry, but when they described what vocation ministry was like, and I had gotten a taste of it in my formation because we would sometimes go and talk to different schools, I said, I think I would really like that. I think I still wanted to work with a younger population, with teenagers or maybe college students, even children, and but in vocation ministry, I wouldn't have a routine. So I would get to make my own schedule, and I would get to travel a little bit and see different places and meet different people. So I said, I think that's what I want to do. And I hadn't made final vows yet. Usually they wait for a sister who's in final vows to be vocation director. But they said, well, we see that you might be good at this, but if it's not something that like if you get into it and you realize it's not what you thought it was, we'll give you like a year to try it out. And then if you want to continue, we'll send you for official training. So I said, that sounds good. And now I've been doing it for almost 3 years because I love it. So I don't think I'll go back into teaching. However, there are days that I miss it because I'm like, oh, I loved creating an environment for my students. I loved seeing their minds going. I loved seeing them grow or not. I loved seeing them struggle. And I just loved like being a part of their lives in such a beautiful way. So, but what I would like, because I just started training for spiritual direction, I think I would really like to one day be a spiritual director, like on a high school campus or maybe a college campus, and just offer that. And whoever that day wants to come and talk and, is struggling with where God is in their lives, I think that's something I would really like to do. So, yeah, probably not teaching again, but I could see myself being on a campus. And why the Felician sisters, and how I chose the Felician sisters. So just real quick, because I should probably go get ready for Mass. I chose the Felician sisters because I had met them on this pilgrimage. It was just at a time that I was ready to really think about my future seriously. And I was dating a guy at the time who was really attractive. We're still friends, but I told him, I was like, even if I get married, I just have to know. I have to know if this is for me or not, because religious life had always appealed to me. And then when I met the Felician sisters, there was just this sense of home and peace. And those are two really important things when you're discerning, whether you're discerning religious life or you're discerning married life, or called to the priesthood. The sense of, do I feel at home? Do I feel like, wow, I've arrived? And do I feel a sense of peace? Or is there a lot of anxiety attached, or like a lot of unrest or unsettled attached? Like just to pay attention to that. And I met the Felicians, like they were the only community that I really ever met, aside from one when I was in high school. But again, in high school, I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to think about my future right now. So the Felician sisters just kind of came on my path at the right time. And so my discernment was simple. I was like, I don't feel like I need to meet any other sisters or talk to any other communities. God placed them on my path at this time, and I'm going to go with it. And again, though, I felt at home already, So just because you meet a community at the right time doesn't mean like, let's go. Everyone's discernment is different, but that's how it worked out for me. And I just loved the diversity of personalities and of the way of life, and we're Franciscan, so I love St. Francis. St. Francis was actually my confirmation saint, so it worked out. And okay, I got questions about my childhood and have I experienced any miracles. So when I was a kid, my mom's side of the family was very, very Catholic. My dad, though, he also went to Catholic school, so I had a lot of that influence in my life since I was really little. And my grandmother would pray the rosary in the living room on her knees, next to us, and I was like, well, I don't want to pray the rosary, so boring. Yeah, I was just a little kid. So now I love to pray the rosary, although I will admit that it makes me sleepy, and so typically I say it at night when it helps me go to sleep. But sometimes I'll say it and not go to sleep. But as a child, I went to public school my whole life. I think what helped me really grow as a person was how or when my parents believed in me, or my teachers. Like, to know, and even now as I think about this as an adult, when people believe in me, it really it pushes me further without me knowing that, because then I start to believe in myself and I say, wow, I really can do that, or I really am capable, I really am worthy. And so, like, for example, my mom always believed in my ability to dance, or my ability to write, my ability to do art. She was like, was not just complimenting me, but when she saw that I wasn't doing my best, she would push me, a little bit further and say, you're capable of more. And so that, and now those things, dance, writing, art, those are all things that make up a big part of my spiritual life. And someone asked about like what my prayer styles, things that I love to pray with, so I'll put those in the comments. But it's, so those, while I didn't know at the time that it was developing my interior life, those things ended up being really, really important to me. And then my dad, he was like, whatever you do, I'm proud of you. So, when I entered the convent, he was like, are you sure? Is your mom making you do that? But he also saw how happy I was, and he said, you know what, this seems like a good fit for you. But he also said, if you ever leave, it's okay. I'm proud of you for giving it a shot. So just that, to have someone believe in me, I think that's what's helped me to get so far, in my own opinion, in life. That I can say, yeah, I'm a good writer. I can write, or I can dance, and I don't have to be the best dancer. I can just be the dancer that I am, like to embrace my own way of sharing that gift, or even just enjoying that gift on my own time. And have I experienced any miracles? Well, first of all, one that comes to mind right away is when I wanted to enter the convent, and I said to God, because I was just finishing with college, and I said, well, I have like $3,000 of debt, which was not much at all for a high school or a college student. But I was going to take some summer courses, and it was going to be another $1,000. And I was like, it's the spring. Yeah, it was the spring semester. I was going to take some courses in the summer, and then I wanted to enter the convent in the fall. And I was like, Lord, you know that there's no way I can pay off $4,000 by the time I want to enter, so you're going to have to do something. So it was towards the end of the spring semester, so I applied for a loan. I just said, well, at least it'll have less interest than the credit card that I'm using for my courses. So I applied for this loan to pay off the credit card, and I'm not a detail person, so it was like 2 weeks before the deadline to apply for student aid or financial aid. And so when I got a check in the mail, it was for $4,000, for the loan that I applied for. But then I checked my bank account, and then I also had about $4,000 in there, and I was like, I always had like $30 in my bank account, so I was like, where did that come from? My mom was like, don't touch it, they probably made a mistake. So I called, and the financial aid office at the university said, actually, you applied late to the deadline, but we had all this grant money left over, so we gave you a $2,000 grant for this semester and a $2,000 grant for the past fall semester. So I was like, it was God. It was just immediately answered to my prayers, paid off everything, so I didn't even need to use the loan. I had no more debt in a matter of weeks, and so I was able to take my summer courses and then enter the Felician Sisters in the fall. So that is one, I would say, miracle. And another is one that my mom tells me about from when I was really little. So as I have told you, I love Mary. And so when I was a little girl, I would call her Nona. I don't know where I got that, but I would call her Nona. And so whenever we're going to church, I would say we're going to Nona's house. And one day we're walking, and I was probably like 3 years old, she said. And we we're just going down the sidewalk, and she's like, I pause. So Desiree, I pause, and I'm like, Mom, and I'm all excited, and I'm like, look, it's Nona. She's in the trees. And my mom's like, what? And I'm like, Nona, she's right there. And so my mom says that I had a little apparition of the Blessed Virgin. I certainly hope that's true. I love that story. So maybe one day I'll see her again, although I'm really, really scared of things. So I think if she appeared, I'd probably have a heart attack. But maybe not. Maybe I would just be so overwhelmed with her holiness that I would live. But those are some answers to your questions. And what I love about religious life, I love that, kind of like what I was saying earlier, I get to be myself, but I also get to live a little bit differently. I don't think that religious life is better than, married life, or that it's holier. it's different, and I love this way of living differently. I love that it's a family, that it's a huge family. So it's not just my community that's my family, but it's people that I minister to. It's all my Instagram friends, all of us are connected because of how I am in the world, but even same with married people, like the way that you are in the world, you've made connections in that way. So I feel like there are lots of blessings and graces that come from our different ways of choosing to follow God. And in this way, I feel like there's a lot of relationship. There's just religious life is just very relational, and I think that's what I love about it. My role model or favorite saint, so many, but I love Thea Bowman. She is on her way to becoming a saint, Thea Bowman, and it just so happened. So I grew up in New Mexico, but I was born in Mississippi because my dad was in the Air Force. And it just so happens that I was born like 3 hours away from where Thea Bowman was born. So one day I'm going to go visit it because that's just fantastic. But yeah, she really just, again, like she was just herself, and she was a Franciscan sister, a perpetual adoration, who just was like embraced her identity as a woman, as a religious, as a woman of color, and just helped other people see how loved they also were by God. So that's like my goal. I want other people to know how loved we all are by God. So she's one of my role models and favorite saints. But I also love Padre Pio. I love St. Clare of Assisi. There's just a lot of really good ones. And something that's bringing me joy right now. Well, at the very moment, I am in Detroit, and so we're staying with our sisters here. There's 3 of them, and they minister sort of in the inner city, and one of their priest friends is going to have mass for us today at the convent because it's my feast day and my 1-year anniversary, so it's just really exciting. And again, like God's connections bringing so much joy and beauty. And what else? Like in general, something bringing me joy is, I just found, so many things, but the fact that I'm studying spiritual direction, I love it. And the more that I learn, just the more, I don't know, I'm even having like this emotional, physical reaction. It's so exciting. And I just found a really good spiritual director. And so it's lots of very happy things. Oops, I dropped my pencil. Something I've learned during this time, so I, as a child, didn't really travel much, and so I thought that I was a homebody because I was like, no, I don't go anywhere. I don't like to go anywhere. And then when I became vocation director, even when I entered religious life, we moved a lot. I traveled a lot. But as vocation director, I travel a lot. Not right now because we're in a pandemic, but and so I love traveling. So it was like every other week I was going somewhere. I was unpacking and repacking, and I loved this like sense of busyness. And then during the pandemic, it just all kind of stopped, and I was like, what? And for about 2 weeks, I had like this existential crisis, and I was like, what does my life even mean? I have nowhere to go. I have nothing to do. Nothing's happening. Like, why do I even go to bed? Because I don't even need to wake up in the morning. Like, what is the point? But I've calmed down, and I've learned, I'm a religious sister, so it's like we've already been taught, life isn't about what you do, it's not about productivity, but easily it gets to be an emphasis because people want us, and they want to invite us to churches or want to invite us to schools or want to, so it easily becomes about what you're doing. But it also, I've learned, can transition into your being. Like, people just want you to be there sometimes. They just want you to be with the young people. They want you to be with their prayer group. So I don't necessarily have to do anything specific or special. I think that's what the pandemic has taught me, that I can just be and I can be present, and that there are different ways of being present. So before this, it was very much like you have to be present to people, you know, like physically, and we all get together, and sometimes we took that for granted, and now I think a lot of us see how important that was, how important just a hug is. But the fact that I can be present and be online present is something new to me, because before it was just like, oh yeah, I post pictures of like me and my family, you know, but now it's like we're connecting because this is like our only way to connect right now, but we are forging these relationships and being present to each other, whether it's through encouragement or through learning or, you know, listening or educating. I feel like we're really here for each other, and it's social media, but there's, you know, we can use anything that God has given us for good or for not good. So I feel like a lot of us are learning how to use social media in a way that brings life, you know, back into a world that is very physically distant right now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go downstairs because they're probably setting up for Mass. It's in about 30 minutes. But I'm going to leave in the comments, I'm going to share a little bit about my prayer styles, what my prayer life looks like right now, things that I love to pray with, books that I love, yeah, stuff like that. So thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for being interested in a little bit of who I am and where I've been, what I've done. And I hope to continue journeying with you. I know that I have a lot of new people in my Instagram life right now, and thank you. Thank you for being on this journey with me, and for keeping me in your prayers, and I will definitely keep you in mind. God bless you all, and happy Feast of the Assumption of Mary.